Originally, Sumo thought that Kailong would enter a very negative energy state again after speaking these words. But what Sumo never expected was that Kailong was calmer than before, and his expression also had more decisions than before. He has repeatedly realized that his attitude will bring bad feelings to everyone. I know that my state just now may be a bit incompetent, and the situation will not be the same as before, and I will lead my staff to act in your way as always. Take in our hands what is ours, like this expansion. Kairon's words were very capricious, but there was a hint of helplessness in his expression, which Farid had never seen before. In other words, he has never seen a powerful existence with such confidence. Okay. I'm very satisfied with your attitude, but when the matter is actually dealt with, I'm afraid it's not as simple as you imagine. Kailong, now go and gather the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe. You need to teach them a lesson and tell them what you think. After hearing these words, Chiron was very shocked. In his opinion, there were many things in the process of dealing with them in the past. They would not talk to the warriors, but now Sumo actually asked him to communicate with the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe. How is it possible to speak out in detail what you think and what will happen next? Isn't this a bit bad? You know that my fighters have a lot of news and I don't want to tell them. Tell them casually, but it will keep them in a very dangerous state, and it will also cause me to suffer some losses. Chiron said such words with a lot of meaning. His face was full of that anxious expression. Because he knew very well that he had to keep a little concealment from the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe, and only in this way could he succeed when he ordered something from them. Sumo can understand the thoughts in Kailong's mind. In other words, not only Kailong, but everyone is like this when dealing with things. Concealing your subordinates, or turning your subordinates into ignorant existences, only such things can be implemented in place. There is one biggest disadvantage, that is, when the soldiers know the truth, they will inevitably riot in the future. No one likes to be deceived, let alone being fooled by others in the applause. At the same time, Sumo quickly stopped Chiron, and under the doubts of Farid and the orc boy, he began to talk about his ideas. The purpose of my appearance is not to make you so powerful, but to let all the fighters who have come into contact with me get a new life. Let each of them realize that evolution is at hand. Evolution? Kailong, Farid, and even the orc boy all relapsed after hearing this. They are very clear that this kind of vocabulary only exists in legends, and they have never experienced it before. Shi Kailong read the remarks about evolution and some academic truths in ancient books. But these are unreachable existences for him. Even if such a thing really happens, it is impossible for them to obtain a way to become stronger in the shortest time. Saint. What do you mean by this? Do you mean that we must include all our companions now, and then help them to make them more powerful little by little? Orc boy is a conscious master. When he asked this kind of question, he looked at Sumo with a hint of amazement, hoping that Sumo's thoughts would coincide with his thoughts. But the orc boy didn't expect that. When you are thinking about some things, you are willing to think carefully. Very good, I am very satisfied. In time, my orcs should also stand on the top of the planet. This is from the various comments from Sumofu University. After listening to the orc boy, he also looked very proud, but in the end he remembered something and fell silent again. He knows that the whole tribe still has a way to go. The current state is also because of the existence of the leader. I will never mislead them. If he does not have Sumo's, then he can still. What do you get? However, in the final analysis, things are moving in a more friendly direction, and all of this has indeed benefited the three of them a lot. Even they understand that if they use their own power to cooperate with Sumo, they will be able to obtain more unique benefits than ordinary people remember. Of course, the most important thing now is to dig out a huge lake near the big fountain, and then the three parties will work together to send heavy troops to defend the lake. The source of water is very important for any ethnic group. In the past, the Songling tribe completely relied on the dewdrops of the ivy to obtain water, but now it is different. After some water sources, they can save more labor and use more time to do what they should do, such as repairing weapons or learning elemental spells. However, the people of the Pine Forest tribe, you can realize, may not be as high as imagined. When most of them make time to learn psionic power and elemental magic, they find that they have no such talent at all. This is completely devastating news for the Pine Forest tribe. They will never believe that they are a race with no future. As a human being, if you can't even operate elemental spells, there will be no room for progress on this planet. Since this time, Chiron has been thinking about these things. He is very afraid that these things will come true, but there is no way. The truth is like this. There was no room for anything, and the reality made Kailong realize the future outcome of the Pine Forest tribe. If it continued like this, they would have no future in the true sense. But for Chiron, there are still opportunities. He fixed his eyes on Sumo and tried to communicate with Sumo, hoping that Sumo could give him a bright guide. At this time, Sumo was strolling in the inner courtyard of the Pine Forest tribal city-state, flipping through all kinds of information and some upward information within the tribe in his hands. I am very happy in my heart. To be honest, this means that a tribe was directly pulled on the right track by him and became a city-state, and they can also face a lot of battles with very little strength. Saint, I have a lot to say to you. After the words came to this point, Chiron lowered his head abruptly, not daring to look at Sumo with his true appearance. He always felt that he had done something wrong. But Sumo understands his inner thoughts very well. He must realize that his group has no room to rise before he can find himself. I can see your achievements in the past few days, but I also feel the same despair in your heart. Kailong, sometimes things are like this. It's not something you and I can say at will to solve it. Regarding the talent of your ethnic group, I do have a little helplessness. Sumo is a master who speaks the truth. He also has some affairs at this moment. His own ethnic group is not strong, and it is a fortune among misfortunes to meet Su Dilly. Just when he wanted to justify something to say, Sumo's words rekindled hope in his heart. But I think, with my power, I can get them to the level of using the basic elements. After Chiron heard Sumo's words, Saint, is this really okay? Let me tell the truth. These things you are talking about are things that I dare not think about, in my imagination. My clan has no way to become stronger. To put it uglier, they have already become wastes among wastes. When Kai Long said this, the feeling in his heart was very painful. For him, this is something that should not happen at all, and it is even impossible to exist, but there is no way. Since it has been said, it must be dealt with sincerely. So where should I start? I didn't know anything about saints at the beginning. If I can get your true story and guidance, I will be like a god when I do anything. What Kai Long said was not false at all. He really didn't know how to make his tribe stronger. All the hopes are pinned on Sumo, but Sumo quoted the last conversation with planting. Wanting to become stronger is not an existence that you and I just talk about it. You have to understand that what we need to do next is very important. I will let you and your staff evolve towards a higher direction, so that everyone has the same decision-making ability as you. Sumo's serious attitude caused Chiron to have some doubts. How is this possible? Let your other subordinates be like yourself, have more ideas to solve problems, and even turn each of them into a powerful being like yourself. Saint, don't laugh at me. I still know how much they weigh. If you do things according to your attitude, I'm afraid that all the time will be messed up before we succeed. This is not feasible. There is a huge gap between people, and it is definitely not something you can keep up with in an instant. After saying these words, Karen's expression became even more confused. Sumo's attitude was completely beyond his understanding. He couldn't believe it was true, and he even felt that his ethnic group might have been ridiculed by Sudi. Sage. What do you mean by this? Are you talking about my race? There is no hope for people? Chiron was very concerned about what Sumo said, but what Sumo said next filled him with excitement and even saw the future. It's really uncomfortable to communicate with someone like you. Things that didn't exist in your mouth can become very threatening. I really don't understand why. Well, then bring all your warriors to me, and I will select them. Sumo's words made Chiron seem to realize something, and his expression changed from the agony just now to full of power. With the arrival of Enotis, all the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe all arrived outside the hall, and each of them was very excited. It is said that this selection is the only one in thousands of years. The warriors of the Pine Forest tribe are quite excited. If they can obtain the right to become the strong, then they will fight for this opportunity even if they risk their lives. In any case, this time I become an elemental mage. Even if I take my life, I will get something in a real sense, and I don't want to be trampled on by others. A powerful warrior of the Pine Forest tribe said such words coldly. Sumo suddenly noticed the insidiousness in his heart, and he didn't even take a breath. I am also able to become an element mage. This is the glory of our ancestors. My 92nd generation ancestor used to be a very powerful element mage of the Fengling tribe. Zhang is that all of them have been missed over time. The words this soldier said were even more terrifying, and there was even a little bit of anger and jealousy mixed in his words. He couldn't bear this, and Sumo didn't want them to become enemies because of such a situation. The originally very good atmosphere was instantly led to an unknown but dangerous state. What was originally a good thing could turn into such an unpleasant thing in the handling of the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe. Sumo couldn't understand for a while. But he knew that this could also prove from the side that these people of the Pine Forest tribe did not have any spiritual power. Even if they can be cultivated in the future, they will probably only be able to maintain a very low-level state. This made Sumo's heart very unhappy, and then Sumo spoke again, suppressing the warriors of these Pine Forest tribes. What are you doing? Selection is the best result for each of you. If you dare to continue to be arrogant in front of me, then I think selection is useless. Sumo's words quickly brought these warriors of the Pine Forest tribe into reality. Originally, they wanted to get the chance to become elemental mages through the method of death and death, but let Sumo talk about them. I dare not do this. After a short period of suppression the soldiers of the Pine Forest army all quieted down. In order to allow the soldiers of the army to continue to face the next selection calmly, Su let Farid and the Orc Kids Corps be there to support. Both of them are very ignorant of what is going to happen in front of them. In their opinion, Sumo is wasting time by doing this. Why do things that are unnecessary? Saint. I can understand what you think about them, but often the more this kind of thing is, the less they have the strength to improve. You have opened a Pandora's door for them, which will lead them to a desperate situation. Farid's calm words tried to hide the little panic in his heart, but it didn't seem to matter to Sumo. Since it's already like this, it's time to let the current situation continue. Do you really think I was like this in the beginning? The warriors of the Pine Forest tribe have their own choices. I can't stop their lives, but I can guide them to a safe corner. The orc boy also understood. The meaning of Susai's words made people sound really thoughtful, that is to say, these warriors of the Song Forest tribe. Even if you don't learn the power of elements now, you will be brought to the extreme by some evil things one day, and then everything will be more difficult. Saint. No matter what your words say, what happens to me next is what I can do and should support. Don't worry, no matter what happens next, I will back you up with my strongest strength. After the words were spoken, the loyalty of the orc boy was immediately clear, but Sumo didn't want to hear the words of loyalty now. Sumo now wants them to help him maintain order, and in the future, he will jointly select and cultivate the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe with elemental potential. I know that the thoughts in your heart are different from mine, but I don't want to repeat this sentence in front of me so many times. What should I do? Next, I will start the selection. When Sumo said this, it was indeed a little helpless. The number of warriors in the Pine Forest tribe was too large. Does it mean that every warrior wants to try to become a powerful elemental mage? This is almost impossible. After wave of screening, at the beginning of the past, there were only 50 soldiers left from tens of thousands of people. It took nearly half a day. The hearts of these 5 soldiers still made Su Yi very satisfied. At least they don't have any extreme thinking. Everyone is very kind, but they all have a common shortcoming. The physical quality is very poor. It is precisely because their bodies are weak that their spiritual power reaches a relatively high level. At the same time, Sumo once again tested them, allowing most of them to continue to experience their own baptism. In the last level, Sumo deliberately set it very threatening, using the most painful and uncomfortable method, to let each of them see the unacceptable illusion in their own hearts. This is also the last test, because Sumo believes that through such a test, each of them can recognize their own shortcomings in the shortest time, and do what they can do. The psychological qualities of these fighters exceeded their expectations. When they saw the hallucinations in their hearts, they didn't even have any fear. Every fighter was very tough. What's exciting is that these fighters passed Sumo's test and reached a very fishy state. At night, these 50 warriors were all turned into elemental troops by Sumo. After this elemental army was promoted by Sumo, they have completely shown their loyalty to Sumo, and they are even willing to sacrifice their precious lives for Sumo. These warriors of the Pine Forest tribe never imagined that one day they would become so powerful that they would be able to give Su all their hopes and even all their blessings. And they knelt down in front of Sumo, hoping that this matter could be resolved in a real sense. Saint. It is precisely because of your appearance that each of us is aware of the change in this situation. I don't know what the final result will be like. Why? But I am very clear that after you are here, we will all become closer, but we will not break out of civil strife because of some things. After listening to these words, Sumo did not sigh. What is the situation? He is also very clear about those dangerous things, and he also knows how to let these soldiers avoid them. Don't you all know what you should do, and you have to ask me one by one? If this is the case, I don't think you have any real need to exist at this time. Because too many things are a waste of time, you should understand what I mean. You also know how to weigh specific things. The reason why Sumo spoke to these fighters in this way was because he could feel that the breath of these fighters was gradually developing in a very negative direction. Worshipping oneself as a god is something that Sumo never really expected before. What he is most afraid of is that this kind of thing will happen. If they really want to regard themselves as gods, then it will be almost difficult for him to restore this planet to its original appearance quickly. What are you doing? After being selected, you should feel lucky and continue to serve those poor people, but why do you say such words in this place? I really treat Sumo like a god. I advise you all to take it easy. If you can stop talking about this kind of thing and words in the future, try not to talk about it and make it annoying. Kai Long immediately scolded, and these soldiers showed a crazy look at the behavior of these soldiers. He also didn't want this kind of thing to make Sumo feel confused, so he immediately acted like he was very comfortable with Sumo, as if he wanted to apologize. Of course these soldiers are ignorant, and they like to make things so strange when they talk and do things. After you rest assured, I will find an opportunity to educate them and tell them that they should abide by principles in their conduct and actions. When Kai Long said this, he showed a very happy look. Sumo really sighed helplessly after seeing his situation. For a person like him, Sumo has always been very calm in his heart, but now Sumo can't hold back anymore. Immediately motioning him not to tell himself these useless things, Farid could see that Sumo was angry because of such things. At the same time, these elemental warriors also behaved very strangely. They didn't know where they made a mistake, and when they looked at Sumo, their hearts were very painful. They didn't dare to say any more words in front of Sumo, so they lowered their heads even more, hoping that Sumo could understand their current state. Easier said than done. These elemental warriors who are not as good as Sunning seem to understand something at this moment, and withdraw as soon as they can, and they don't dare to fight Sumo again. Regarding this point, Sumo is also really helpless, and has always given these fighters enough tolerance, so that they can do more things with themselves in some ways. This is enough to prove own good idea, but it will also make them go crazy with others in front of themselves because of some things, which is meaningless. And I absolutely don't want each of them to become like this. Not to mention wasting time, it makes people even more troubled. The orc kid calmly walked in front of Sumo, patted Su on the shoulder and signaled him not to be so anxious because of this matter. The current situation is similar to them, and he also hopes that Sumo can relax a bit, put these things that should be done aside for the time being, and don't think so uncomfortable. Saint, you are our backbone, and seeing the situation in front of you like this, I think your hearts should be more or less the same as what we think in our hearts now. It will be a little uncomfortable, but we don't want such an accident to happen again, and we also want to continue to do what we should do with you by our means. After saying this, Sumo seems to understand that when communicating with them at the same time, Sumo can really feel the influence of these two forces on him. Their hearts are also developing in a good direction, and everything is as they can see, which makes people feel relaxed. Well, I also know the kind of thoughts and times in your mind, but it is completely unnecessary. I don't really want this kind of thing to continue to happen in front of me. Yes, I know that you are all like me. You don't like to make things so complicated. You have rested for so long. If you have anything to say and do, you can tell me what you want to say. Speak. Sumo's speech is enough to prove that his heart is very strict now, and he doesn't want this kind of thing to continue to become more threatening. Kai Long showed a very angry look towards the warriors of these tribes. In his opinion, the warriors of the Pine Forest tribe shouldn't be talking nonsense like that. It's all right now. Things will become more and more difficult after making Sumo angry. What's the matter with you little bastards? Did you twitch your head? Well, I really can't understand you about your current state. But I am also very clear that this may be the pressure caused by the fetters of fate. If you continue to yell at Sumo like this, I will be very angry. After saying this, it was obvious that the elemental fighters were silent in their hearts. They actually told those things with a very excited attitude. At this moment, Chiron doesn't care so much. What Chiron wants is Sumo's sense of identity with them in a real sense. This is very important. Of course, Sumo also likes to use her own methods to change things when doing things. He knew very well what these Pine Forest tribe warriors had to face, and he also wanted his power to bring them more benefits. The elemental warrior among them cried instantly. She knew very well the meaning of Chiron's words. This was a kind of oppression for them. In fact, everything was the same. This was because everyone had different inner thoughts, so the situation was different. None of us did anything wrong. We were all just dealing with our own affairs, but why did you do so much harm to us? Although we, Patriarch, have just been promoted to become powerful beings, we have no intention of betrayal. Can you allow us to survive easily the next time we communicate? It was obvious that the words spoken by this elemental warrior were very meaningful. Kai Long was furious after hearing this. He understood what these warriors wanted, a higher recognition. A better communication, but Kai Long doesn't want to give them such a thing now, because Chiron is very clear about the events that may happen next. You cannot be soft-hearted. Remember, apart from you, no one in this world can be calmer than you. There are many people watching you, those guys will treat you as killers. After Chiron said this, his expression calmed down instantly. He also knew that it might be wrong for him to talk to his men like this. But there is no way to make them realize how dark and terrifying this matter is. When he speaks, he must have a certain meaning of formation in it, which is equivalent to some kind of dark existence. Remember, the Pine Forest tribe needs you, but you are also inseparable from the Pine Forest tribe. Sumo will give us higher help, but we must not let him think that we are hurting his existence. After Kailong's words were spoken, these warriors did not dare to speak, nor did they dare to raise their heads. Instead, they quietly lowered their heads, as if they were children who had done something wrong. Seeing this scene, Kailong was also helpless. At first, he didn't want to treat these Zhanshangs in such a way. They were all good. Then Chiron immediately changed his tone of voice and gave them corresponding encouragement. You didn't do anything wrong. I was too anxious just now because I know what I am not afraid of or worried about. Once this kind of thing takes shape quickly, then the final outcome will inevitably be for each of us. All must be born. Kailong soon realized that his words had damaged everyone's morale, but what he never expected was that Sumo appeared quietly behind him at this moment. Hearing the words just now very clearly, the elemental warriors suddenly raised their heads as if they had seen some powerful person. Even the one who was listless just now regained his composure and stared ahead with full energy, which made Chiron very curious. Okay, you have to remember one thing. In the future, you must not make your hands feel so uncomfortable and get angry, but it is easier to talk well than to solve any problems, you know? The words from Sumo made the current Kailong feel a little bit ashamed. He seemed to understand what Sumo meant, and this feeling was a kind of harm to himself. When he heard the words, Kailong felt a little anxious. He didn't understand what sus words meant. He is very clear that he should adjust his posture with those warriors, instead of seeming to be very isolated from each other when he talks and does things like he does now. Saint. I'm sorry, maybe I took some things a little bit to the extreme. It seems that the more interesting things have completely exceeded our imagination. I will work harder. Chiron is also working hard to overcome this so-called grassroots consciousness. In his opinion, most of the Chikan consciousness is caused by his own improper operation. It is precisely because of this that he now has more ideas, and at the same time he intends to recommunicate. And with these elemental mages to make all the things that should be made more friendly, it is not to say that the two sides will be so uncomfortable because of a little thing. Regarding the elemental mages, Sumo didn't want to put any more pressure on them, because he also knew that these warriors finally became stronger. There is no chance to deal with actual combat. When you talk and do something, you will inevitably say something to yourself. And I hope they can foreshadow their attitude to deal with it. After all, this situation will not make Sumo feel more worried about the current situation. But Sumo knows his career has just begun, and it's not over. For the soldiers, he prefers to command in his own way, so that they can get more special management, but when doing something. After all, he still needs to face the bad incident again, that is, the existence of some peripherals of the Songling tribe has begun to communicate with him in a special way. This is probably the last thing Sumo wants to see. These are some other tribes, and the existence of these tribes is very arrogant. They don't mean people who really want to solve things, but they are troublemakers, and they're not like people who can talk well and solve all problems. Chiron also welcomed them with the highest standards, because Chiron knew that these guys were not something I could offend easily. It is uncertain what conflicts may occur in the future, and it is more appropriate to be friendly between the two. This tribe is a scavenger hunt, an unknown tribe, although Kailong can't say anything to their hands. But when looking at their leader's calm appearance, he also knew that the other party actually wanted to communicate with him, and he said something. Our wandering tribe can reach cooperation with your Pine Forest tribe. I am really very satisfied. Especially when communicating with you, I don't know why in my heart, I have a feeling of nostalgia. If we can work together to develop something, there's nothing to be afraid of. This made Kailong stunned for a moment. When did the two sides talk about cooperation? Isn't it obvious that this guy is not looking for trouble when he speaks like this? Immediately, he was stunned, and there was a strange attitude on his expression. As if he wanted to say something, Sumo's appearance interrupted the current situation in front of him. Wrong. When you meet important guests, don't you need to say hello to me here? You also want me to personally ask these things. You know better than me what I mean by my words. After listening to Sumo's words, Kailong's expression also changed. To be honest, knowledge is a little uneasy. He immediately wanted to say something to Sumo, but Sumo broke his hand, so he didn't say these words. He had already made things very clear. The leader of this wandering tribe was even more arrogant. When he looked at Sumo and others, he seemed to have a lot of words to say. We just want to get your share of your pie, get a bite to eat, and see how good your life is. I'm really looking forward to something like this, and you should be able to help, right? What this warrior of the wandering tribe said instantly annoyed Chiron and made Sumo feel like he wanted to laugh. This guy really knows how to speak. Which pot can't be opened and lifted? He obviously lacks some characters on his side, but because he has made all this so extreme, he is very unhappy. If you communicate with me, I suggest that you have the best attitude. My staff and I are definitely not vegetarians. We are very angry with people like you now. When Sumo spoke, his expression was extremely serious. He had a lot of things he wanted to continue to express, but it was useless to show his darkness in front of him. On the contrary, it would make the other party feel that his price was very important. The leader of this wandering tribe is very indifferent, and there are some things that are just like what he thinks in his heart now, and he quickly progresses in that fun direction. To put it harshly, this has already had a crucial fit with what he can think of in his heart now, and he feels that he can let certain situations continue. After the leader of this wandering tribe said his words, it was obvious that his affection was no longer as comfortable as before. At the same time, he also wants to continue to say some words that make people feel unacceptable because of some small things, because it will be more troublesome when such things really have to be opened for this city. Sumo really hopes that when they communicate with him while seeing the truth clearly, they don't make things so unnatural, and he has some unimaginable requirements for many things. For the leader of the Wanderer, Sumo has always wanted to have a kind of control over him, and tell him what is right and wrong, so that he has a clearer sensitivity to things. You are not our enemy, not the words you said, but it proves that you are an existence that cannot survive. For people like you, I do feel a little uncomfortable, and even more as a kind of disgust, you know? The situation at hand was of great importance, and then the leader of the wandering tribe was called out by Sumo alone. This time, Sumo obtained the expansion protection of the world's will. Quickly push his breath to influence this guy, and make him feel the difference between him and others. When the leader of the wandering tribe looked at Sumo, he was very worried that he was afraid, because he had never seen a guy as crazy as Sumo. After seeing a werewolf like you, I instantly felt that I was different from other people, but Sumo, do you want to teach me? Teach me how to be as fierce as you. If I can be as fierce as you are as strong as you are, I am afraid that I will be different from others now. After listening to the guy's words, Sumo instead sighed and told him that it wasn't too difficult, but that he was thinking wrong. Isn't it enough that you take your people and become the subordinates of the armor dragon directly? What can you get by wandering back and forth? My breath is so inspired, you want me to help you do this and that. Is it possible? When Sumo spoke, he didn't show any affection for the guy in front of him at all, but the other party was very strange. He was curious why Sumo would reject him. A person who is so cruel to himself should be regarded as a good subordinate. Right. But he forcibly suppressed the hot temper in his heart, and bowed his head helplessly in front of Sumo. He hoped that Sumo could help him from the side. Even if it's just a moment, but Sumo just kept silent. At this time, Kailong walked out as if he had received a hint, and spoke directly to this fellow of the wandering tribe. You continue to wander with your people, and the result may be nothing more than this, but if you take the opportunity to join me now, you will gain supreme benefits. You can choose whether you are right or wrong. Like I am such a good person, there are not many in this world. After these words were spoken, the current leader of the wandering tribe could not refute yes for a while, not only because of his words. It was because of the majestic power like Sumo that moved him. He couldn't help crying, and said that he would lead his subordinates to do some other things in the next process. The leader of the wandering tribe directly acknowledged Sumo's status without even thinking about it, and swore to Sumo that he would join his subordinates, which is also beyond what Sumo knew. This guy really dares to say it, but after thinking about it, since it has reached this point, Sumo can't just put the other party aside. One more brother is better than one less, so Sumo also started tell him about other cognitions in his heart. Well, do you want to have a friendly cooperation with me next? It's almost as easy for us as both of us. If possible, I'll speed up the speed at this moment, so that each of you can enjoy it. Think for yourself. At this time, Sumo's words made Kailong and the leader of this wandering tribe think of a lot of things that should not be thought, but at the same time, his heart was also full of a strong pressure. Because he didn't know how to reply to Sumo, he was bound back and forth by such a force, unable to say anything, saying that he could only stay here seriously. This feeling is simply too different. The stray people also completely joined Sumo's men. To be honest, he actually doesn't believe that these warriors are people who obey his own words, let alone that these people can cooperate with Sumo and the others. Exist. But fortunately, the current Sumo is still very calm, and the situation is not as uncomfortable as he could imagine. At least it is like this now, who knows what it will be like in the future. No one can describe it in words. The sudden growth of the Songling tribe made other warriors feel very uncomfortable. They have no way to say anything, but they can only grit their teeth and stay honest at this moment, because they are very shy about some powerful foreign existences, and in their opinion, such people are not good people. Master Kailong, what do you mean? Or is it the sages? What do you want to do to let these rubbish join our command? Do you want to turn all these things into something that shouldn't be became something? Obviously there are always some people who are in good and bad situations here, and Chiron doesn't want to say anything more about this, because this kind of garbage will only affect his heart. At this time, he laughed instead, and in a more unique way, made his attitude clear, and hoped that everyone could fix all these things, but no one knew the situation, whether it would be so easy to troubleshoot troublesome, but certainly not difficult. What are you doing? What do you all want to do? It's the other way around, isn't it? Ah, I've started to deny my words, right? I just hope you guys can be quieter. But your attitude makes me very disgusted. Did I do something wrong? Or is it that you deliberately want to do something that shouldn't be done? If you dare to disobey, the bandit will beat you hard. At this time, a dangerous element has appeared in the situation, and Sumo has just realized something that makes him feel wrong in his heart, and this kind of thing is still happening directly. And it has made each of them worried. The things that have been saved will definitely become stronger, and the crazy things will directly break through the entire area in a fast form. The internal problems of the Pine Forest tribe make Sumo want to laugh. They can't let go of this trivial matter. They do this and that one by one. If this situation continues, then it will definitely be difficult for him to do it, but Sumo is not like this. People think that he likes to make it all smoother in his own way. Let them continue to fight first, and wait until the right time to take action. There is no other way, and it is impossible to make the things in front of you quieter. This is the truth that Sumo can predict. Do you want to continue arguing? Hurry up. Let me continue to watch your jokes, and when I don't want to watch it, I'm solving your problems. The warriors of the Pine Forest tribe also quieted down instantly, because they knew what kind of existence Sumo was, and what they did just now actually made Sumo very angry. Repelling foreigners and suppressing them is something only bad people can do. Oh, why are you all so silent? Go ahead, I haven't finished watching the good show just now, continue to show your true strength. The purpose of Sumo's words is to let the warriors of the Pinewood tribe know how naive what he did just now, if it continues like this. Inevitably, some more things will become very embarrassing, and seeing each of them is a quiet look. In the future, Sumo will know that his words will inevitably have other functions in the next process. The people of these wandering tribes joined us. They didn't want to do something, but they were in the real sense. If the weak help the weak. We should naturally pay for some cases, instead of treating them as enemies, and ultimately abusing ourselves. Sumo's words can be said to make all the soldiers and civilians of the Songling tribe who wanted to make trouble, all of them quiet down. Instead, there are some very dark thoughts in my heart. No, this should be a kind of self-inflicted torture, just like what Sumo said. What they did just now is indeed a lot wrong. Sorry, Saint, our hearts seem to be confused by something. And when we did something wrong just now, we seemed very impatient, but we actually know it. Being and doing things shouldn't be so evil, but we have always been unable to control our hearts and can only be confused back and forth by this kind of power. At this moment, Kailong also immediately ordered all these warriors to be honest, telling them that the development of things was definitely not what they thought, and these guys had to be of great use. Okay, at this step, we really don't need to fight over this kind of thing anymore, since the adults have said it so clearly. Now let's think about it and see how the next thing should be handled. He understands the inner thoughts of his warriors very well, so he also speaks some words that can calm them down, instead of making them even more angry at this moment. To resolve the conflict between them and Sumo is the most important. Very good, if you can figure out this matter, your clan will definitely be more powerful, but also you have to be careful. Some things may continue to hurt you. I'm not sure if they really hurt you, it is good. Sumo's words didn't have any dignity. Listening to it, he had already discovered some of Chiron's subordinates, and they had a kind of rebellious thinking. It was because they were too powerful before and they were more free than before, so it was inevitable that they would something bad happen. And Kailong felt that it didn't matter. After all, it didn't matter if he was his own warrior, no matter how threatened or troubled he was. Saint, don't think too much. If I say that if they really dare to resist, they are not like this now. You look at how pitiful they look like. Even there is such a little pain in it. What should I do? Should I let them all stay safe and sound? There was a hint of doubt in Kailong's words, but people who said were right, even if they didn't believe their subordinates. They should also be given enough freedom and more space. When they really realize these, they will naturally feel that they are good to them. Sumo is very satisfied with Chiron's transformation of thinking, which must have been extremely extreme if Chiron was placed before. He must start to kill all those other ignorants in his existence, but now it is different. Now he almost still insists on treating his subordinates as his own brothers. Don't want them to be exposed to something dangerous and more uncomfortable at all. Farid is also very helpless about the current situation. According to his previous practice, he will definitely torture these guys. At the same time, he also prepared his long-haired monster for defense, and the interior has not been peaceful since this time. Especially after these things happened, he had a painful feeling about his own thoughts. Sure enough, if I want to say that these people of yours are the most unstable, it is precisely because of their behavior. That's why the current situation has become like this. I want to train the people of your Pine Age tribe. Are you willing, Kailong? To tell the truth, after hearing such words, Chiron's expression became excited. He understood what kind of state Farid's hairy monster was in now. In other words, their strength is now completely beyond their imagination. Do you mean to let your hairy wise men lead my subordinates? I think you can. Your wise men are good, and... After Kailong received Char, the whole person became quiet. From another point of view, he knew what the words he said would represent. Farid also nodded with satisfaction, and the little orcs who had been standing by for a long time stood up against it. He felt that the law was a bit biased. Why can't I train my warriors? They are not only powerful, but also very powerful here, if they can get special guidance. Maybe it will be able to overwhelm the heroes, crush more ethnic groups and unknown monsters. I really don't understand the saints. Why don't you talk to them and help us? The orc boy looked at Sumo, and at the same time as he said such words, there were a lot of things in his heart that shouldn't exist. Yes, it was a naked desire, something unbelievable. The latter looked at Orc Kid and instead laughed out loud. And Sumo sighed calmly, and felt annoyed by the attitude of the orc boy. If he is so greedy for power, what else can he handle? Everything will be directed towards a very dangerous development. You guy, wait a moment, I will let Farid help you later, orc boy. Sumo has always been indifferent to this state of both of them, but saw everyone in front of various forces and temptations. He couldn't hold himself at all, and sooner or later there would be a big problem. Sumo still made a choice. He had to guide them, and the world's will was so strong that he could do more things. Kid Orc, now I will personally lead you to train you, but you must first overcome desire and animal nature. You should know better than me how many of your warriors are the craziest beings. After Sumo said this, the orc boy suddenly turned his head to look at Sumo. His eyes were full of disbelief. He thought it was impossible, and he didn't think Sumo would continue to bring him comes with more benefits, and suddenly he is in great pain. Saint. Let me tell the truth. I don't know whether your words are reliable or not, but what I know is that something more interesting will definitely happen next. Just tell me. What can I do for you? Sumo's expression also became strange after hearing this, but the orc boy wanted to do something more for himself. Even playing some more dangerous existences, Sumo refused, and Sumo warned the orcs at this moment, no matter what the kid does, he must do things according to his own strength, not some kind of big dream that he continues to carry at this moment. Engaged in some very inappropriate things. The orc boy never imagined that he was able to be seen so clearly by Sumo, but he also quickly showed the appearance of being indifferent. And look at Sumo more frankly, hoping that Sumo can help him in a real sense. This is inevitable. At the same time Sumo began to train the orcs, so that each orc can do it in the shortest time, and began to learn the various things that exist in front of him. Although it may be a little troublesome to do so, at least Sumo has figured out his most different state from others, making these orcs stronger one by one. At first, the orcs were crazy in battle. When they used some strength to do something, they always seemed to be very extreme. I don't like to communicate with people, and Sumo is different. Sumo likes to use a more straightforward way to let people understand. What is the use of such an approach for them, and even allows these orcs to get some real recovery and become more vicious? You should be very clear about my requirements for you, Orc Little, and then you need to ask each of your warriors to do something more. Sumo's special training has made the fighting situation of the orc boys much stronger than before, and the power in each orc's head is more fierce. This kind of ferocity has risen to a level that others cannot rise in almost the shortest time. But specifically, how things will end depends on the orc boy's control of the entire orc tribe. This time the orc truly understands the gap between himself and Sumo. This gap was something he could never break through. Thinking of this, the little orcs felt like they wanted to cry, but Sumo interrupted them immediately. Let all of them do other things quietly with themselves in the shortest possible time, that is, when building the city-state, continue to incorporate those small tribes and those poor people around. For so long, I've been letting you grope and do something on your own, but now it's different. Now more dangerous things are in front of us. I need you to work with me to do something together. Can you do it well? Finally, the last thing they wanted to face was about to happen. The orc boy looked at Sumo with a very serious look. He didn't know what to say for a while. But some of what Sumo said was very important to them. After a little thinking, the orc boy also decided what to say to Sumo in certain states. and this communication will give them the future more benefits. I don't have anything to say. It doesn't matter if the Saints want to attack, we can start at any time, but I have to remind you that some people will definitely not let us live so comfortably, that will make us very painful. Kaoru's words made Sumo realize that this kid is not a person who can lead the Pine Forest tribe to do great things in the true sense. If he continues to control the Pine Forest tribe, it is very likely that some dangerous things will happen. At that time, the situation will not be good. At this moment, he is still very anxious in his heart, but this anxiety is clearly seen by Sumo. Sumo quickly made the best arrangement for the Songling tribe, which is to let them do the logistics. As long as they can do the logistics well, things will be less difficult. Sumo believes that they can definitely do these things. Okay. Well, how about I give you a chance, Kailong? You need to take your manpower to provide logistical services for our expedition. This is the easiest thing. I think it shouldn't be too difficult for you, but if you're going to reject me at this moment, don't blame me for being embarrassed. Kailong understands what Sumo means, and he has a very stressful feeling about it now. He doesn't know how to describe the pain in his heart. But fortunately, he can still seriously follow Sumo's words and do some things that should be done, which may be important to him, but it will also make him restless in his heart. Sorry, Saint. The reason why I can't do things according to some of your previous words is because the Songming tribe still has a lot of things to do. Although they are all the most powerful warriors, I need them very much. They do something for themselves. Please rest assured, this is not disrespect to you, but an exploration of myself, so you should be able to clearly realize what my heart is thinking. After Kailong finished speaking this kind of words very evenly, his expression was much happier than before. This is indeed the truth that a truly ruthless person can play. Farid expressed his understanding to the orc boy. After all, these warriors of Chiron are not particularly stable, and some of them have thought about destroying the orcs before this. There are also those wandering ethnic groups. Fortunately, Farid has included some of the wandering ethnic groups. Otherwise, what will happen in the future is really hard to say. You really should educate your subordinates. Their attitudes are completely inconsistent with what they have done. I'm afraid that at the same time as the danger is created in the end, you can't control and restrain yourself, anyway. The person is yourself. Everyone seems very strange to Kailong's current attitude, and Kailong also thinks that everyone seems to want to trouble him a little bit. For a while, he doesn't know what to do. However, the more interesting thing has just appeared, and Kailong immediately adjusted his state and assured everyone that after all these dangerous things have been solved, he will inevitably lead his people to the battlefield together. No matter what happens next, he will show his true attitude and show his powerful strength, so that everyone will not be angry. I know what I have done wrong, but I will never bow to those in the past. On the contrary, I will still have the opportunity to show my sincerity in front of you. At that time, all of you will believe me. Kailong looked innocent and assured Sumo of various incidents, but Sumo smiled and looked at this guy more helplessly, but there was a little more self-blame in his heart. It was they who brought such an existence into a dangerous state. They said that if this kid really can't do something and leave a psychological shadow, wouldn't it be their own problem? This situation still insists that it is no different from what I think in my heart. At this point, I don't want to say anything more. Well, you already have your own will, and I hope this kind of thing will go on in a very comfortable way. After saying such words, Sumo's attitude is also much better than before. Yes, there are some interesting existences in such a very cheering state. He also began to do his best and swept towards him, which is a synonym for Sumo's great power. He is now using his own method, doing some of the most shocking things that others can't believe. Sumo made the orc boy and the spearman obey his own words and moved forward quickly, but at the same time he also had a kind of truth and persistence in his heart that many people could not imagine. His purpose seems to be very simple, that is, to regain this land through his own method, so that everything here can be restored to what he wants most. The strength of the will of the world will inevitably bring him something more friendly, but it may be difficult to say what it will be like, but in summary, it will not be a crazy thing. The compilation is still going on, but there is a bigger problem that follows, that is, how can we open more breakthroughs now, which is particularly important. This is a very dangerous existence that makes people feel, and it is not a feeling that becomes easy because you say that you can compile these ordinary homeless people. Sumo soon realizes that the thoughts of these homeless people have long gone beyond the good sustenance they have for them. To put it harshly, they are now dealing with and solving some unacceptable things in their wildest ways. It was in such a very stressful environment that Sumo incorporated these homeless people who defected to them, making them a great whole. Although they are all cannon fodder, they have a full role. Farid agrees with this very much. With such a method, they can make them realize what they are going to do next, what is the best. Instead of letting them fish in troubled waters in the team, such confusion will inevitably increase the burden of their entire system, and even make them bear a very heavy concept. Saint. I agree with your approach, but you have to pay attention to one thing: don't let them live up to too much despair. They are very friendly beings, on a certain level. It can help us do many things. When Farid said these words again, he looked at Sumo with a very candid expression. He knew very well that his attitude might not be recognized by Sumo, but it would definitely make Sumo realize something at this moment. And what is in front of him seems irrelevant to Sumo, who, in his opinion, has already reached the stage of a situation where it is unnecessary for anything to happen again. I will turn these vagabonds into the most powerful warriors, and let them work for me. Don't worry, Rhett, I will let you have an extra command team in a week. After listening to what Sumo said, Farid's face became very bitter. These homeless people were personally directed by Sumo, not to mention how jealous he was in his heart. I think. These guys don't bother you to direct them yourself, and if I can, I will help them myself. Farid's heartfelt words made Sumo see that he was determined to work together with him, but how could the hairy monsters need his protection to interfere at will? You have your own business to do, and so do I. I hope that the long-haired monster group can become stronger under your adjustment. Instead of being like now, there is no future for you to be with me like this. Sumo's words are not nonsense, but a real existence in the real sense. If it is true, if he wants to mix with Sumo, even if Farid improves, he will not regard this kind of okay the raised thing is transmitted to the hairy monster group. But if he can personally lead the long-haired monster to do something together, it will not take long for the long-haired monster to become more powerful, and even be able to deal with many things in a more unilateral form. After thinking of this, Farid could only sigh helplessly and face the missed opportunity in front of him, and his heart was helpless. After a little more pain, he immediately adjusted his state to meet the next incident again. Under the leadership of Sumo for half a year, the surrounding area has now become a paradise, and a thin wall has been splashed around the fortress built by the Pine Forest City-State. There is no problem in defending against the enemy, but more importantly, it takes some effort for Sumo to build this place and create an existence that can trade. In the past 6 months, Sumo did not choose to conquer any opponents, but did everything possible to make these 10 into a real paradise where money can be delivered with one hand. It is also the last area on this planet, and soon there are some rumors on this planet, that is, a city-state like Sumo. With absolutely powerful troops and abundant resources, he is trading with some more powerful caravans and empires on this planet. Some caravans specializing in business came here, and these caravans in the peripheral area caused by Sumo stationed at the price of high protection fees. Hope Sumo can protect them. They are willing to provide the best gems and defensive weapons for Sumo's medical records and manpower. With the addition of these merchants, Sumo is now even more powerful. These merchants have a large number of exquisite craftsmen. These old artists will use various methods to compile protective shields and soft batteries suitable for their soldiers to wear. This greatly improves the melee combat strength of the melee warriors, and also enriches the weapons at more levels, allowing the elemental warriors to use some weapons with a little elemental attack power. After such a series of major processes, for Sumo in the future, he is now fully capable of leading people to attack directly. Although his subordinates are not particularly many, everyone has become an existence in one enemy. In this situation, what else would he be afraid of? Could it be that he was afraid of being attacked by the enemy or confronting people head-on? Not so. The people who should be afraid now are always those legendary existences similar to empires. Their strength is the saddest. To tell the truth, just relying on their methods, there is simply no way to compare with Sus Positive, even with the passage of time. They will lose miserably, and Sumo now only needs to continue to plunder the wealth of this planet through trade and business. Why is Sumo so interested in wealth? Because he finds that the powerful power of these looted gems can help him restore the will of the world most effectively, and even give the hairy monster a higher IQ. The restoration of the world's will is naturally a good thing, but the increase in the IQ of the long-haired monsters has brought them to an extremely high state. Each of them has become extremely artistic, and they are quite sincere when they do something, and they always try to inquire about Sumo's ideas through various methods. Farid also felt a little helpless. Could it be because he was idle? But soon he told these people where the next battle would take place. The Pine Forest City-State has already started corresponding actions in accordance with Sumo's method. When they do something, they almost achieve a very extreme existence. They don't have any tendency to want to expand and keep building walls, and they keep making everything they own more fierce than before. The city-state of Pinewood has fully reached the opportunity to expand outward and continue to acquire large tracts of land, but Sumo has not done so, because Sumo has some very special ideas in his heart. Not only are the caravans of the outer city states curious about themselves, but they can also obtain a large number of gems from their hands. That is to say, within these 2 days, Sumo once again came into contact with some more magical guys, who can also be called existences from another world. Why does Sumo tell the story in this way? It's because these little ones are communicating with themselves. Their state is very unusual, as if they are deliberately rejecting themselves and do not want to communicate with themselves, which really makes Sumo feel a little funny, rejecting himself. They have grown up. In the face of such strange things, Sumo didn't think much, but compressed them in some kind of force, making them realize that exhausting means facing the oppression of life. But what Sumo never imagined was that the people in these caravans were not afraid of themselves at all. On the contrary, they also had a great interest in themselves. It's as if every day they think about getting something out of their own power, but is that a good thing? No one knows. Some of the caravan leaders even wanted to meet with themselves, but there was no way. Sumo, who should meet or wanted to meet, didn't think much about it, but communicated with them directly with his own attitude. Now the Hall of Pine Forest City State is no longer the same as before. In other words, Zhang Yanqi is now very grand, and has all kinds of mysterious and unbelievable things. The leaders of the caravans never imagined that one day they would be able to see so many beings that made them extremely surprised. Perhaps they have forgotten that this trip is to communicate effectively with Sumo, and they can't extricate themselves from the mystery brought to them all over the hall. What do you want to tell me? You should talk about it as early as possible, and then communicate when we are all passive in the end. In that case, our communication will lose the meaning of meeting each other. After Sumo spoke to the leaders of these caravans, these relative leaders also all behaved very calmly. They know what's on Sumo's mind, and they know that when communicating with Sumo, something is bound to happen. Sumo's voice not only attracted these relative leaders, but also made them absolutely curious. Because they have never seen such a powerful existence as Sumo, this is a feeling that makes them very worried but not depressed. Then you must be the sage that they said about it now. It's better to see it once you hear it. After seeing a person like you in the true sense, I know that what they said is so correct. Sumo laughed instead after listening to this guy's speech. Isn't that just flattering himself? Just say what you want. Don't make things so bad that I'm also tormented in my heart, as if I have humiliated you like never before after I gathered you here. Sumo is a person who likes to get straight to the point, and his attitude is also much more serious than others. I can see that you came to me not just for the trivial things in front of you, but also for your own interests, right? This kind of interest is very important to you, and even allows you to do this and get rich, right? Sumo speaks so directly. After hearing this, the leaders of the injured team also showed a thoughtful look. They came to work together last time, and they are more willing to learn from Sumo's leadership. Hire some warriors to protect them. Saint. You are a very correct existence, you are right. Now we are indeed coming to cooperate with you, but we still have more ideas in our hearts, and want to exchange some resources from you. I don't know you, would you like to? The caravan captain seems to have some other ideas about Sumo because he feels that Sumo's power and the existence he has in his hands can be merged into his own things. If he borrows the power well, maybe he can let Sumo help him fulfill many of his remaining wishes. But he knew that he was humiliating himself by doing this, because it could be seen from Sumo's expression that Sumo didn't seem to care about himself. You are a very talkative person, and I feel the pain in your heart from a certain level. Friend, you must know that I have no jurisdiction over you. But don't you stand in my way, Ma? After Sumo spoke again, his attitude remained firm, and from another point of view, Sumo's purpose was not to communicate with them in some way. Instead, take some things that you can control, and let these guys obey you, and let the interests of these businessmen be completely entered into your own hands. This is the most important thing. This is also the reason why he is so strict now. He believes that these hurt people will eventually achieve a goal with him, and then the two sides can work together. It's good to have such an idea, but few people may know if things will fly towards the state, Sumo thinks. But now Sumo is still very calm, because he knows that there will be a miracle in a certain state, and the existence of these caravans will also cooperate with him for this. His thoughts are very friendly, and the existence of the caravan in front of him seems to want to communicate with Sumo again about this matter, and he hopes that Sumo can be like him. Because of some trivial matters, adjust your mind, don't be so angry. What kind of existence you are? I think people all over the world should know that because of your sudden appearance, the structure of this world is still disrupted, and those who do not obey you will inevitably suffer the baptism of death. An elderly merchant leader looked at Sumo coldly after saying this, and there was a lot of torment in his heart. Because he knows his words, it is very likely that Sumo will be very angry, but what he never thought was that Sumo's corner was very calm and showed an indifferent look, and he didn't care about it at all. Seemingly unnecessary incidents, they were brought into a dangerous state in front of Sumo, but Sumo also knew this situation. It doesn't mean that all things can be the same as what they think in their hearts, so smooth, and there will be more threats. Some people have already wanted to toss themselves in secret. But he has never had a chance. This is not the chance now. He can play fierce things at any time. You businessmen are not as honest as I see. I can clearly feel that some of you guys seem to want to kill us too, but the chance does not allow you to do so, so you don't dare to do that, right? After Sumo said the words here, his expression was much more crazy than before, and he has been searching desperately. Because he just felt that some of these injuries seemed to be plotting against him. If he really wanted to do this, it would be a good show. But these situations did not seem to be as threatening as Sumo imagined in his heart. On the contrary, more interesting things began to recover in the direction he saw, and the merchants also showed their disapproval. Solution: look. We don't dare to do anything in front of you, my lord. After all, we still know your strength very well. The ending of messing around in front of you is equivalent to our own death. But now we have a lot of words that we want to say to you. Would Dao be willing to have an exchange with us? These businessmen always have some kind of tact when they talk, and they seem to want to invite Sumo into the urn. Bringing Sumo into that very dim state, it's a pity that their strength is not enough to kill Sumo in such a way. I'm afraid they are still a lot worse. Don't play your little tricks in front of me. If you want to say something, just say it quickly. Even when I'm not completely angry, I think some feelings will be very harmonious. Sumo was furious because these caravan guys were extremely evil when they talked, and it seemed that their purpose was to play some very fierce incidents in front of them. But he wasn't that stupid. He wouldn't give them this chance to get anything, and Sumo began to quickly use his own methods to consume them. It is really dangerous for them to make each of them feel uncomfortable in an instant, and let these businessmen start to internalize themselves. Soon, the hearts of these businessmen became much more uncomfortable than before, and each of them was very crazy. They began to choose to beg Sumo to stop torturing them in a way that they could not accept. The pain in their hearts was already at this point, and most of their hands were already under pressure. You are not the strong men of the caravan. You should be very powerful now. Why are you afraid of the oppression of this kind of power that I have brought to you? No way, are you so weak? Because of your current situation, I am still more curious about whether you want to communicate with me in a friendly way, or do you want to avoid any conflict with me here? If it is a conflict, then we will fight directly, and I will let you die without a burial. Sumo's words were clearly intended to intimidate the members of the caravan, some of whom seemed to be relatively large. And their expressions were relatively silent, as if realizing what was going to happen next, they behaved a little more silently in front of Su. And they were very honest, because they knew that if they changed Sumo's way of making money, they would be untenable in Forest City, and the situation would be troublesome at that time. There's no way. We don't dare to provoke you when we provoke anyone. It's because we don't understand some things, so there were some small episodes when we talked just now. Now there should be more friendly communication between us. I'll tell you that. This time we also know what you need, so we brought some treasures. One of the head of the business group directly took out the small cloth bag around his waist and poured the treasure inside on the table with dozens of huge black diamonds. The color of these diamonds exudes aura that these ordinary people cannot see at all, but Sumo can clearly feel the powerful power these auras bring to him. In other words, the convenience of this breath is far beyond the things and states that he can think of in his heart now. It would be great if these gems could be used to restore power about the will of the world. Thought of this, at the same time. Sumo also didn't show a very excited expression, of course. This expression was quite bloody in the eyes of these caravan members. Very good. I need a large number of such beings. I think you should have more good things in your hands, don't you? If you have any, just take it out. As long as I have more funds in my hands now, I will try my best to swallow all these things. When Sumo said this, the other caravan members also showed a very serious look. Because they know, Sumo will definitely have a real big cooperation with them next. This kind of cooperative communication should not be more crazy than what each of them can think of. We have some other ideas besides this. Hope you can promise us? We want to use some examples around you to make these things more harmonious. After hearing these words, Sumo understood what they meant. The so-called more harmonious is to give them more bodyguards. It is certainly a good thing to protect their operations and services on the periphery of the Pinewood City State. But it also means that there will be more unsettling situations. What should I do when it happens at this moment? How many people can explain all these things? After thinking about it for a long time, Sumo finally decided to let Kurong serve these guys. Being a bodyguard for them can not only earn high gems, but also some other good things. I will let the soldiers of the Pine Forest City State protect you, but at the same time, you must also understand that this is my territory, and everything in any situation must be adjusted by me. Sumo's speech requirements are not particularly high, but these relative team leaders are very uncomfortable. Their actions were supervised by Sumo, so what can they do well? One of the business leaders immediately expressed his department to the original owner, and hoped that Su-hei could make his hands stop staring at him. Sumo, don't forget, we are a cooperative relationship, and you will control and monitor us in the name of a cooperative relationship, won't your conscience hurt? When Sumo heard this, he could laugh. What he never imagined was that these members of the business group would dare to deal such a suppressed blow to him. But from another point of view, the development of things seems quite real. Just like the attitude in his mind now, these people and things are gradually changing towards another extreme direction. Remember, this is my territory. You have to be obedient in my territory. Otherwise you have to do nothing and make two choices. Think about it for yourself and see which one is more suitable for you. Sumo's words had a hint of indifference mixed with indifference, which could be seen from his expression alone. He was already very impatient with the situation in front of him, and the captains of these caravans still chose to remain silent after all. If they want to make money, they must make compromises in some aspects. Overall, this is a very friendly thing, but from another perspective, the current situation is not as troublesome as we thought. But Sumo was flustered, because he could clearly feel that there was a stronger force behind these business groups. And this city has already begun to plan to hunt down the city-state of Pine Forest. If this kind of thing happens in a real sense, then he and his men will fall into an unwarranted disaster. After getting the news from Sumo, the orc boy and Farid quickly came to the queen, who had already adjourned. Looking at Sumo's silent look, they seemed to have a lot of words to say, so they took Sumo to wave their hands to signal them not to speak, and waited quietly. Don't talk about so many useless things. The situation in front of us is such a threat and opportunity for us, and it is also accompanied by it. You should know what to do. After Sumo said these words again, his expression became more serious than before. A lot, to be honest, everyone really knew what to do. But he didn't want to do that, especially Farid, who felt that it was meaningless to attack this seemingly civilized guy. Saint, I know what you mean, but what benefits can we gain from such a battle? They will still be afraid of us going out after all. I don't know what else they can do. The orc kid's heart was already angry in an instant, and he also knew that he must be strong in the next matter. Regarding these business groups, whether to save or not, the orc boy has already given a very complete answer, but Sumo was very dissatisfied with his answer, and told him his request again. They all have to live in front of us. Master Orc Boy, if you don't care about them, I will find other people to take care of their interests, and they will definitely be ours. I don't want this kind of thing to fall into the hands of others. Do you know? So now you'd better adjust your mentality for me. The orc kid felt Sumo's anger for the first time, and he originally wanted to lose or something, but he became even more restless in an instant. He also seems to be able to realize the feeling that Sumo's anger will bring to each of them, that in general, the development of things will always make people feel very unfriendly. It's a pity that what everyone has to accept is these things. There is nothing to say. The orc boy quickly adjusted his state. I hope Sumo can give himself some opportunities to redevelop himself. I know my wrong, Saint. Please rest assured. I will use my best way to completely quiet your heart, and I will never let this trouble continue to show up in front of you. After Sumo heard what the orc boy said now, he patted the orc boy on the shoulder with great satisfaction, and continued to tell him the extent of the situation in front of him. This guy always likes to make those fearless disasters in front of me. In fact, I'm also very anxious about you. When I see you in this state, I always wonder if I should make you bear the burden. What about something hopeless? After Sumo's words were spoken, it was obvious that the orc boy now had a look of fear on his face, and he immediately waved his hand to signal Sumo not to put such pressure on himself. It was true that he couldn't bear it. My lord, although I said that I was wrong, but I was wrong enough to die, so don't treat me like this, okay? The words that the orc boy said at this moment are enough to prove the tenacity in his heart, and Sumo did not say that he would bring any pressure to the recipient boy at this time. But looking at the special attitude of Shorin Shao, the team behaved more calmly, and the orc boy gave some kind of help to it, making their people start to move quickly on the periphery. A special judgment is made on everything here, but it is best to win as much as possible of those that can be won. The orc kid was very impatient to undertake this task. In his cognition, those who wanted to do things in front of him should have a miserable ending. And he is also very clear about Sumo's attitude when he is doing some things. Although he is uneasy at the moment, he is also very calm. No matter how anxious he is, he can't go anywhere. The situation that should have happened has already happened, and Farid felt that Sumo was forced to do so, and the boy did something he didn't like. I'm afraid that in the end, It will only make everyone more divided because of the things in front of them. So this state of the orc boy is realized in Faird's most disapproved, and he doesn't want Sumo to be so messy.